I believe his instincts are pretty good. But what I'm telling you, whoever believes that there is any space for Vladimir Putin in the future of a stable globe better go to Ukraine. They better go to Europe. They better invest the time to understand that this man is a cancer and the greatest threat to democracy in my lifetime. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you that Vladimir Putin is a liar, a murderer, and a man responsible for ordering the systematic torture, kidnapping, and rape of innocent civilians, believe me, because the evidence is mile high. If you believe that Ukraine is a country an ocean away and not relevant to our national security, think again. The world is small. The world is watching. The strength of our alliances are on the line, and the future of democracy in the world is on the line if we do anything less than defeat Vladimir Putin.
That is Republican Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina on the Senate floor yesterday, actually saying the quiet part out loud, voicing the concerns of the Senate floor, on the Senate floor, that most of his fellow Republicans are whispering in the GOP cloakroom, and what America's closest allies are voicing across Western democracies that stood by the United States of America in our fight against Nazism and Soviet communism. And also the same concerns being voiced among Donald Trump's most loyal defenders in the media. Most this morning are still asking whether Mr. Trump's cruel positioning against Ukraine is merely some misaligned, some disastrous opening bid in negotiations, or a drastic realignment of U.S. foreign policy that will be more dangerous, more immoral, and encourage more Russian invasions across Eastern and Central Europe. Just ahead, we're going to show you how Donald Trump's national security advisor is now trying to explain the president's position, which is exactly the opposite of what his has been when he was a member of Congress. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It's Friday, February 21st. With us, we have co-host of our fourth hour and contributing writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and associate editor of The Washington Post, Eugene Robinson. We have writer-at-large for The New York Times, Elizabeth Buehler, managing editor at The Bulwark, Sam Stein, and also we have the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale. And you know, Gene, we're going to get to Ukraine in a minute, but I just think we shouldn't let what Thom Tillis said go by without a comment off the top. What Senator Tillis said is actually publicly is what almost every Republican senator is saying privately. What almost every Republican House member is saying privately that's on the Armed Services Committee or the Foreign Affairs Committee. They are horrified by what they're hearing. And now we're going to be reporting that the G7 has scrubbed their official communique to take out Russia as the aggressor in a war that Vladimir Putin clearly started.
Yeah, absolutely. So the G7 cannot publish a joint statement with the phrase Russian aggression in it. Look, this is insane, but you talk about it as, well, maybe it's an opening bid. People are saying this is Trump being Trump or whatever. I don't see why anyone should not believe him. He likes Vladimir Putin. He can't stand Vladimir Zelensky. We know that. You know how much of foreign policy, domestic policy, how much of life is just personal to Donald Trump. His own grievances, his own petty slights that he believes that he experienced. And I think he fully intends to follow through with this new completely un-American, disastrous foreign policy that he has outlined in the last few days.
Yeah, and he's made it deeply personal, calling Zelensky a modestly successful comedian, calling for new elections in Ukraine, demanding half of their minerals with their deal. We did hear Secretary of State Rubio behind closed doors try to reassure Europeans that maybe U.S. policy not changing as much as they're positioning publicly, but that's basically, Joe, that has left, allies and adversaries alike sort of bewildered. But at the end of the day, this is Donald Trump's decision. And let's remember, it's very reminiscent of the first term, where Trump publicly, very friendly towards Putin, but the administration and the Congress at times took steps to punish Russia. We'll have to see if that happens around this time, too. Certainly, Senator Tillis breaking with the White House yesterday, saying publicly what so many of his colleagues are saying privately. Others have been very much more modest in their criticism, saying they disagree with the idea that Putin is a good guy, but not willing to actually criticize Trump for what he's saying. We're going to have to see this time, though, if the guardrails hold, where this time Trump pushes through and says, look, this is our new approach to Moscow and Europe.
And again, we really had a tale of two administrations in the first term. It's so important for people to remember that in the first administration, you have Donald Trump saying things like he said at the Helsinki press conference in 2018 in response to your question that he trusted Vladimir Putin more than his own people.
I can only imagine how the thousands of people who've lost their jobs feel seeing that image of Elon Musk with the chainsaw proudly holding it up and wielding it around as if this is such entertainment, Congressman. As Melanie mentioned, that Georgia town hall was in a district Trump won by 22 points. You're hearing that anger in those communities. If you're a GOP lawmaker right now getting an earful from your constituents, what do you do?
Well, I would tell them to look back at the tape from 2017 during the health care town halls when many Republicans were being hammered at the time of the Obamacare repeal replace movement. And that's what it feels like now, that Republicans realize that they are in a very defensive position, that what Musk and Trump are doing through DOGE is having real consequences across the country. And many of these Republicans now are forced into a position, do they side with Donald Trump or do they side with the constituents in their districts, who have lost their jobs? And so this is a really tough moment, but this feels so much like 2017. I can't begin to tell you. And even a Republican in the district like you described, where he won by 22 or 24 points, some of these districts are going to be competitive in the 2026 midterm. So some of these folks who think they're safe right now and in very safe Trump districts are going to find out they're not that safe. And that's what we saw in the 2018 midterm. If I were a Republican, I'd buckle up and get ready.
Greg Bluestein's the person who took some of that video. He's a reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and he reports that McCormick's staff seemed caught off guard by the massive crowd of hundreds that had gathered for this event. Congressman Dent, do you get the sense that Republicans in Washington are sort of living in a bubble right now regarding DOGE and that this backlash really is catching them off guard?
Well, I think the smart ones understand it. When you see Republicans in Idaho push back on cuts to the National Park Service, where tourism is a big industry at the national parks there, in Alabama, where they're worried about cuts to the NIH through this indirect cost recovery cap. That's going on. Obviously, you just saw it in Georgia with layoffs at the CDC. So I think smart Republicans realize that they are in a very delicate position, that Elon Musk's behavior yesterday at CPAC, by the way, CPAC has always been a freak show in my view. It's been where the fringe goes to meet, and now some of the fringe are mainstream, but that was a terrible image. They're going to have to defend that, and that town hall you saw yesterday is likely to be replicated all across the country, and I suspect many members will not be holding town halls just because of that experience.
I mean, the split screen we're seeing in these two images from the town hall to CPAC is really something. Gabe, it appears a lot of the anger, at least at this point, is directed at Elon Musk. I wonder, does that buffer President Trump from blowback? Is the White House feeling the pressure at all?
No, Anna, the White House is not feeling any pressure, at least publicly. That's what they're saying. Again, Caroline Leavitt this morning doubling down and saying that this is what Donald Trump's voters wanted him to do. And yesterday at the White House press briefing, there were several top officials from the administration defending Elon Musk and repeating that it is President Trump that is in charge of all this. And they do not seem dissuaded at all by this blowback that we're seeing at some of those town halls. You saw Elon Musk yesterday at CPAC with that chainsaw, and that is an image that this administration wants. They want to keep hitting that point that they are trying to cut waste, fraud, and abuse as they see it. Of course, they have yet to provide any evidence of widespread fraud, but they're taking the posture that anyone that is criticizing this, including members of the press, they say, must somehow be opposed.
So, folks, what we're seeing here are Republicans revolting against Trump in public and in private over policies, foreign and domestic. And some of them are doing this actually because they disagree with Trump, and some of them are finally growing the tiniest bit of a spine. But most of them, we need to be clear, are doing this out of pure self-preservation, right? They're not actually full of character. They don't actually give a damn about American working class people or Ukrainian working class people, or any other working class people. They care about the millionaire and billionaire class, regardless of whether they're American or not. They believe in the elite globally and not in working class people in any country or every country. And what they're seeing now is a real risk of losing their seats. And it's gotten so bad that we're not just talking about enough seats, guys, to flip the House and maybe even the Senate. We're not talking about the swing districts that are always in competition every midterm. Those people, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, are always paranoid because they know any small shift in opinion could cost them their seat. Those people are predictable. But what we're seeing here is a growing number of anxiety from Republican congressmen and senators in fairly red districts, not necessarily deep red districts, but quintessentially solid red districts, worried about losing because the Trump cuts are hurting everyone. They're not just hurting Democrats, they're hurting MAGA. And also, he's failed on his number one big promise. He made a lot of BS promises, but the one that made him president was, I'm going to fight inflation and lower prices. And inflation is rising and prices are rising. This is going to be a massacre in the midterms.